eventually people are going to say, what the hell is going on?
No matter how far you go into the dark, when you flip, you go exactly the same place to the light in our galaxy. Everything. Because everything is in balance. Everything is a polarity.
I think it's just going to get weirder and weirder and weirder, and finally it's going to be so weird that people are going to have to talk about how weird it is.
What the hell is going on, everybody? How are we all? Hope you're all doing well. Nice to see you all. It's been a couple of days since we did a live stream. I was really in a flow, and I really like doing this. I enjoy doing this much more than I enjoy making videos, because we get to interact, we get to chat. And yes, I do get hyped up by reading your comments before I go live. Absolutely. I love seeing you guys here in the chat, getting excited, getting cozy. I hope you are cozy, because we have an absolute ripper of a show today. So we've got a few things we're going to be getting into. So this is part 5 of the Secrets of S4. I think we've got one more part to go after this, but so far we've heard from Robert Dean talking about stargates, portals that exist all around the Earth. We've heard from whistleblower Connor O'Ryan, who talked about working as a sentry in S4, seeing craft, seeing beings being housed there, and allegedly committing murders to CIA, according to Wendell Stevens. And he did some drawings. He did some drawings of the craft that he saw there. And in today's episode, they allegedly have been corroborated by a man named Colonel Steve Wilson, who allegedly was the head of Project Pounce, which sits somewhere around Blue Book. It's kind of a bit murky. We're going to get into it. Like I said, I try not to watch these things properly. I skim over them because I want to watch them with you guys, and I want to give you guys my genuine thoughts and reaction as we're kind of going through it. And let's jump over to the Polarity TV. And we have something special today. We have a classic, I would say a classic Polarity cook-up that is connecting dots all over the place, that is probably flirting and dancing eerily close to the line of schizophrenia. I'm excited to get into that, but that's going to be later in the show. Okay, we'll get to that a little bit later. That'll be for the ones that stick around. We're going to get straight into the S4 stuff, and when it's time, we'll get into the deep tinfoil hat territory a little bit later on. But guys, thank you all for being here. I hope you're cozy. Get a coffee, have a little stretch if you need to now, get a drink, do whatever you need to do. We're going to jump straight into S4, talking about the alien bodies that were housed there. Here we go.
The aliens are still there, but
in S4.
one of them is ill. Yeah, they're still here. We rotated our scientists. They brought. We wanted them to bring our exchange scientists back in 2 years, which they did, and we sent 2 more. And I think we rotated them every 2 years. So we must have a dozen or more scientists that have been to that home planet for a year or more and come back.
Now also down in level 2, there are 7 gray bodies. Little humanoid type creatures. We're in a...
Sorry, for anyone who's wondering, Suki's camera isn't working. I don't know why it wasn't working, but it wasn't. And I didn't want to be late, so here we are. I'm sorry. She'll be here next time.
Solution. Not how tall it is. I would say max 3.5, maybe almost 4 feet max. Oh, they're absolutely identical. I've never had a chance to sit and observe them for more than maybe a minute, but I couldn't see no individual identification on any of them. I mean, no different lines on their face or anything of that sort.
And you said a little earlier that they called this place the museum. Do you have any idea why they called it that?
Yes, I think it's because, I mean, we all refer to it as a museum, because I think that all this stuff has basically been analyzed before.
Yeah, he said that he saw 5 or 6 tanks, the vertical cylinders that held a human-sized cadaver pickled in some kind of solution, and visible through the glass, like a little big glass test tube. But he could only see the front tube, or the details of the front tube, because The rest were obscured by the front two in the lines. It looked like the bodies were held erect by metal bands around the waist. Otherwise, they were completely naked. The eyes of one of them was sunken back quite a bit, indicating that it had been there for some time.
That's what I don't like about this S4 videos, is that whoever edited it, like, cuts in and out at really weird times and kind of makes it feel a little bit disjointed. I feel like they could let certain interview parts just run longer. But that's what you see in the thumbnail. That is a AI rendition of a real picture, which we'll see soon, that was painted of what it looks like inside S4. So these are meant to be actual legit representations. And just quickly, a massive super chat from my man Sean, who's been a long-time supporter of the channel. Thank you, Sean. You didn't leave a message, but I appreciate the support, my man. Thank you. Nicole, good morning. Rogue Science Guy with a tenner for all your work. Josh, grats from the Seco Activo boys. Oh, thank you, man. I appreciate that. Shout out to Seco Activo and Pavel and the crew. Appreciate you guys. Hello, Heidi, D, Contra, Jack. The whole crew is here. Let's go.
Right here is a level. 7 tubes.
Oh, and by the way, we're on new internet right now. So let's see how we go. See how we go.
These tubes are about 2 feet in width. They're about 6 feet in height.
Stand on him.
They stand on end on end. Now, as you walk in and you look at these tubes, I'm just gonna go this one. They're all exactly the same, and the creatures inside are completely identical. There's absolutely no way that I can see of identifying each and every one of them individually. Now there's an aluminum part right here. I don't know if it's covering the genitals of them or not, but the rest is filled with the solution. There's couple tanks right here. I don't know if they're oxygen. I don't know what they hold. There's no identifying marks on them whatsoever. There's absolutely no air in the tanks. It's all solution. And the grays are just in here, right here. They're suspended, so I imagine they're being clamped somehow, some way to hold them in this completely, where their feet is completely off the ground and stuff like that. And under here, there's about a 1 foot pedestal of black iron steel. Like it's polished, but it looks like a black polished anodized iron.
Super descriptive. I love the way this guy describes things, because he says things that are just like little details that get included that I feel like you're either a absolutely professionally trained, very good liar, or you're telling the truth. I don't know. What do you guys think? Kat Simpson, hello, by the way. Nice badge, Kat. One of the very few people to exist with a 6-month Polarity member badge. Thank you for all of your support. Mr. T, Mish, hello. Sir Broski, our latest weirdo. Can we get some Polarity love hearts in the chat for Sir Broski? Welcome, my man. Thank you. Who thinks Josh might look like Sex Machine from Dusk Till Dawn when he's older? Matt? Maybe I already do. Maybe I already do. I have no idea who you're talking about. I have no idea who you're talking about, unfortunately. But it sounds good, so I'll take it. I'll take Sex Machine, absolutely. All right, let's keep going.
Now, the things inside... I mean, resemble what everybody sees, and... the only thing that's different about them, from what I see on other pictures, is the eyes appear to be deteriorated, or they look like prunes. They're like your fingers get pruned. They're all shriveled up, and you can't see no eye sockets, and there's no visible eyelids or anything like that. They have a grayish, like a grayish pigmentation. It's not scaly or anything. It's like a pigmentation. There's no apparent hair on them. There's little holes, not really slits, but a little hole maybe an ear card. I don't know.
Interesting. He's saying there are little holes, maybe slits for ears. Now, remember the last time I went full Charlie, conspiracy mode with you guys was probably somewhere around the Dr. Jonathan Reed videos where I kind of were looking at the Air Force badges and all these different cases that all look the same. The one thing I highlighted in that was the fact that the alien that Jonathan Reed allegedly killed, who knows, and the Nazca mummies and other weird little bodies that have been found all have these little dots. Not dots, like little holes for ears. This is just another another story that is telling us the same thing.
Slits or really kind of small for the nose and the mouth. The bodies themselves are very, very thin. They appear not to have any breast or navel or anything like that. Not that I can see.
Yeah.
I wasn't able to sit and study them in full view for a while. But I don't think I've heard talk there that I know their systems aren't like ours. But they're very thin and they look very, very frail.
Did you notice the hands?
The hands got a little bit of webbing. Minute, very minute. There's 4 finger-like things, and they're very, very minute piece of webbing. There appears to be no fingernails. As I say, I couldn't look in detail because the hands are turned like this. They're just like a full view, so I really can't see. You can see where there is one joint in each finger, it looks like.
One joint in each finger. Kind of interesting. James Anthony, no, I don't believe this is the tall greys. What Conor O'Ryan's talking about is bodies that he saw in level 2 of S4 that were suspended in vats of liquid, like what you can see in the thumbnail. What you see in the thumbnail is an AI rendition of a real painting of a recreation of what it actually looked like.
Where like ours has 2 joints, I think they only got 1. I'm not sure. You can just see the crease in where they only got 1. And 1 acts as a thumb like what we do.
Like back to tanks in Star Wars. Exactly. It's weird how much the truth and fiction seems to overlap. So to actually give you an answer, I think this may be like a programmed life form. Maybe this is how they're made, grown. I don't know. I really don't know. It's not quite clear. And I don't think Conor gives an answer because he doesn't know. He was just a guard there.
The feet are not in view. The pedestal from before covers the feet completely, so
Didn't get a look at that.
I didn't get a look at them. And they are all completely identical.
This is his sketch of the tank that the cadavers were suspended in. And he mentioned that this was some kind of a regulatory panel that controlled the temperature and the solution in the tank. This is his sketch, rough sketch of the alien figure in one of the tanks of liquid. And he said it's not a very accurate sketch, but it's the best he could do.
The biologist. Government scientist wants the world to know
One of our colleagues there. The rest of the people there are sentries. That there are 4 people there that believe that they're working to try to get this on there. And one of them is a biologist, which I guess he's personally performed the autopsies. I can't say for sure, but we have those reports, so we receive them in detail, and I can see what you think.
Have you taken a look at the autopsy report yourself?
Yes.
Describe some of the anatomy.
I don't know too much about biology and the anatomy. I'm not a pathologist, but I didn't go into detail and read it. I have to be honest, I didn't read it. All I did was look at the pictures of one of the autopsies. They had the...
So they're saying, or he's saying, all I did was look at one of the pictures of the autopsies, which was allegedly part of his evidence, and then they showed this picture, which says autopsy of extraterrestrial being, one of several killed in Socorro, New Mexico, June 1947 crash. So like the people in the show, in this film, don't explicitly say this is the photo or this is a real photo, but this is shown as they're talking about it. So I guess we can take that as they're implying it's real. However, this being looks very big. It looks quite big. It's got a big belly and it's got kind of like thickish arms and legs. Not at all what we normally hear or see when people talk about a grey. We usually hear like small, childlike, extremely skinny, really big head. And obviously it's not a very good or clear photo, but I don't know, it's weird, right? It's not the most convincing, let's say that.
The extraterrestrial little gray opened up. They did what they call a scalp, and they cut
that alien's been going in and out.
Top of the scalp off, and we're looking in there. I know there's brain weight. They weighed everything. The organs are in a little bit similar to what a human Homo sapien anatomy is.
So they had an epidermis, they had eyes, they had a mouth suit, a brain.
This one they have a small Adam's apple.
See, weird
You
details.
can see that through what they're kept in. Now the autopsies are performed in level 3.
Like, and that's weird, right? Because you always hear that these beings are like kind of genderless, you know? 'Cause, like, I mean, if they're just grown life forms somehow, but it has an Adam's apple, which is obviously a male-only characteristic. Like, that's weird. I'm not saying it means one thing or another. It's just a strange thing to include.
I believe. As I say again, I didn't go into detail in the autopsies. I'm just going to leave that to someone else because I really don't understand a lot of the words. I'm a ground. I know they have some kind of a pump system that pumps some kind of chemical blood, I guess you would say. I know I've heard it mentioned that their eyes are, because of the gravitational pull, there are no gravitation to their eyes until you go up in there sometime down in the next level.
What scientists did Contra Orion mention by name who were involved?
He didn't give us a name. He said that the biologist that had charge of the cadavers in the glass cylinders was one of the defectors, his co-defectors that were disappointed by the...
Okay, so just to clarify, I was saying these could be like grown programmed life forms. These guys are saying they are dead alien bodies that are being preserved in this liquid, in these vats. So that's what the claim is, that they are recovered aliens being held in these vats. Ken B, welcome. You are the latest certified weirdo. Welcome aboard, my man. Can we see some love and hearts for Ken B, the latest weirdo?
What they thought was...
Thank you.
Unnecessary secrecy, because they thought that they were guarding museum material. And why did it have to be so secret? And it's tying up their lives so seriously, and they didn't have any liberty or they had no freedom.
What did Contra Orion say the biologist's position and information was?
He said he just took care of the bodies in the containers, regulated the temperature, regulated the chemical balance in the solution. He escorted people that were brought in to view the bodies and described what they knew about the bodies. He kept the records on them. They only met him when they were both out of the facility. They weren't allowed to talk to anybody in the facility except in front of the TV set or eating lunch at the table. And they had to address each other by number. They couldn't use names. And the numbers were on their tab on their suit. The biologist had a number tab also. They never knew his name. They weren't allowed to give each other their names. So when the Marines were out, they did exchange names. He knew some of the other Marines who they were.
Did Bill Uhouse's testimony coincide with that of what Contra Orion said the biologist within S4 was saying? Did any of that information corroborate each other?
No, because Bill Uhouse said that the two alien beings that he helped build the habitat for they weren't detained, they weren't cages, they weren't restricted. They could move about. They chose not to move about a whole lot because we were as different from them as they were from us, and they didn't really like us. Their facility was the special construction facility apart from all the others that we've discussed. Not a part of Groom Lake. It was in Papoose Lake in the S4 facility, but another part from where the craft were stored.
S4, the guards plot to expose the truth.
After Contra rested up and got some, we took him to the restaurant, had something to eat, came back. He told me what he was there for. He said that he had become disenchanted with the security there. And he, on their R&R, he discovered, when they could talk, he discovered that there was some other security guards that were equally disenchanted and didn't think thought the security was overplayed and that they didn't like living that way under the security. And they thought they ought to make a record of it in case something happened. They knew they'd been in, all of them were Special Forces troops. They had been in military security long enough to know that it's dangerous to break the rules.
Okay, because people in the chat are talking about rolling blunts, what's your dream disclosure blunt rotation? You can pick 4. Hit me in the chat. I want to see who you're sharing a blunt with. Disclosure edition.
They really wanted up. They weren't allowed to transfer. They knew too much.
There are some colleagues there that believe that it should be brought out into the open, and that's what we're doing right now. We want to do it slowly and surely again. But I don't want to mention no names.
No names there. I was just wondering.
Ever. I know who they are because I spent my leave with them and we discussed it in detail, how it should be done and who we should contact in this situation.
On their rest and recuperation, they could talk where they couldn't talk in the facility. And they talked a lot. Yeah, they found out that the biologist was disenchanted too and approached him. And when they asked him what he could do for the project to safeguard themselves by stashing information that could be released if anything happened to them, because they're all thinking they're vulnerable because of what they know and what they're doing. And he agreed to furnish documents and papers from his files when the time came to let some of it out.
Did any of that information get out with the 52 photos?
There was a statement on paper by the biologist along with some photos of the bodies in the tanks.
Some great answers there. Whoever said keeping Stephen Greer in your blunt rotation, when he got a hold of it, he'd be the guy to keep talking until the thing's burnt out. It'd never leave him. Everyone would be like, bro, you're gonna stop talking and pass that thing. Mine would be Robert Dean, Phil Schneider, Tim Taylor, and J-Rod. That's mine.
I bought a lot of books. Not a lot, but at some point my mom, when I was on leave, I go to the libraries and read like food. I get light years at the library. I mean, I didn't really do too much when I was on leave because, I mean, just after a while it became kind of an obsession to find out what I'm really dealing with here because
Yes, Kat. Yes, Kat. Absolutely.
I kind of almost feared for my own safety. I mean, I don't want to walk away some incredible crazy ass disease or anything like that, you know. I mean, plutonium poison. I've been discharged now for almost 7 weeks. I met them in Vegas. I met 2 of them in Vegas 3 weeks ago. And we discussed MUFON. And
that's so funny. Yeah, Grid, I'll be holding the blunt, telling you just to let him finish it.
I did a little bit of calling and stuff, and we came to conclude that MUFON is an organization with way too many leaks. We thought it best to go with the private person that is not going to get greedy and sit on the information until we can get it all out. We feel that a big organization like Center for UFO Studies, any nation abroad won't sit on it like we want them to. We need it to be sit on. I mean, we need it to be hidden away and sit on.
So what you guys are basically looking for us to do is to gather the information
and store it.
Think of more that we need so that we can put it together into a good, logical, solid format
And then eventually a documentary would have lead to bring out it.
I feel like if you shared a blunt with Chris Bledsoe, he would become 10 Guy. You guys know 10 Guy? Remember 10 Guy? If you don't know 10 Guy, like the number 10, just Google 10 Guy. And that's what I think of when I think of Chris Bledsoe hitting the blunt.
Basically to shove it at the governments, you know, and to make them, naturally they're never going to admit it. But the people that, the other 4 people that are still currently working there will be willing to come and testify when the time comes. But they have to be ensured that they're going to be safe. Because they do have families, and you know, we don't want to destroy their family structure or ruin their credibility. Like what would happen if we went to a big organization that would be destroyed within hours. I mean, I called them on the phone, although I did call them and I didn't describe myself. I just asked them what their procedure was for investigating government secrets, and they gave me something online of I just hung up on them. They don't. And we knew about Mr. Stevens here. And we know he's been in trouble before on some of that stuff, and we just decided that he was the most private person to investigate this for us and document it the best technical document.
Yeah, he said, yeah, you've seen those little cameras.
See, like, what is that editing? What is that editing?
They just fit a roll of 112 film, and they managed to bring the camera in with a roll of film in it. They even got another roll of film in later.
Right. Okay. So this is where they're starting to talk about how they got these photographs of S4 out, because like we heard in the previous episodes, they get searched on the way in and they get searched on the way out. They get their buttholes searched. Literally, you go to work, they want to look inside your butthole to make sure you're not hiding anything. That's the kind of shit that they go through. Just quickly though, $10 from my man Odin. What's the odds that the breakaway created the Greys because they have mastered AI and used them to hide the black projects with the lie of aliens, and that's why they keep them in vats? What are the odds of that? I would say, in Australian terms, that would be paying $2.10.
Some of the guards were strict and some were not that strict, and so they were very careful about bringing the camera in and the film out. So they had, when they were out on R&R, had conspired to bring in one of those little tiny Instamatic 110 cameras that just fits the reel of film, and they watched the guards. They knew which guards, screening guards, when they came back through, were lax and which were strict, and they were calculating their schedules, and they started calculating the shift to figure out which guard might be on when they came back in, and they got the camera in on one of those calculated risks where the guards stripped up, searched them, everything, but didn't go through the pockets, and they got through okay with it. He didn't. They got it in, and they got it. It was on a package of film.
No, they didn't hide the camera in the prison wallet. They worked out, like, they knew that there was guards that were like a little bit more relaxed than others when it came to searching, and apparently there was a guard that didn't check like pockets as often as the other one, and they kind of coordinated to bring in this like tiny camera in their pocket when that guard was on duty.
And they got later they got a second package of film, but they used that and began to take pictures covertly at their levels. These guys weren't all the same. He was a Marine Black SEAL. They weren't allowed to discuss their history, so he didn't know what the other history. They were all in a nondescript coverall uniform. They didn't know what other services they belonged to. They were not all Black Marines. He was a Black SEAL Marine. He didn't know what the others were because they weren't allowed to discuss it. But they discovered early on that the caretaker of the cylinders, a civilian biologist, was also had the same feelings about the overplayed security and wanted to get out of there. And he became one of their co-conspirators in getting out, and he had agreed to supply documents and photographs of the bodies in the cylinders. And the first deposit in the locker in the Las Vegas bus station included pictures of the bodies and material from the biologists also.
I think, like, you know, think about it. You got all these other whistleblowers here in the modern day that we're seeing. did any of them shelve a camera to get the information out? Like, we need to put some respect on Connor O'Rien's name. This guy's shelving cameras to take photos, and no one even... Why isn't he getting invited on a podcast? You know what I'm saying? And guys, just like when you work at S4, when you come into the Polarity stream, please do a butthole search on the like button. Thank you.
And he said the thing that sparked my interest. He said that there were there were hangar bays, small hangar bays at level 2, and there were craft in 7 of them. And he said that they had taken pictures of all the 7 craft, and that they took a picture of Dick Cheney standing in front of one with one of the lab people from above looking at it. He said they want to say he wasn't there. We got proof.
Yes, Jack. Modern day whistleblowers, aka the conglomerate of CIA agents that just appeared on the podcast scene. I don't want to make any bold claims right now, and maybe I'll talk about this in another video. But the other night, I was watching one of them. I'm not going to say who, because I might talk about it in another video. I was watching one of these CIA agents who are ex speaking on a podcast, and I realized that him and a few of the other ones, they all talk the same. They all say things that would be quite outrageous to say for us people, normal people, in any conversation. If you'd heard it, it would be an outrageous thing to say. And they all say these things very nonchalantly. And they just kind of like glaze over it. And I've noticed it, that it's always these same CIA guys, and they talk in this same kind of like cadence and style. And I don't know. I'm getting a little sus on them. I'm not going to say who it is. You can probably work it out, maybe. Maybe we'll talk about that in another video.
Yeah, I thought
Secretary of Defense at the time.
He was Secretary of Defense at the time. Dick Cheney was, yeah. And he's in there looking at one of the craft in level 2.
Were you able to recognize any public figures that ever came through there in time?
Yes, I did. Would you like me to mention?
Yeah, let's see.
Here we go.
Okay, 3 of them we haven't identified yet, but I believe that they are high CIA from the science department. One of them I've seen his picture before. I've looked for it in libraries, but I haven't placed it yet. One more key figure was the Secretary of Defense, Dick Cheney. He was there about 6 months ago. He was observing with I guess you could say it was a fact-finding type thing. They were walking, looking around. I didn't identify the
Okay, this is about the time we were beginning to schedule a cutback in military force structure.
I believe so, yes.
They were going to close.
That's when they're starting to close the bases and stuff. This around to talk about right there. This base has been here for a long time. Mr. Cheney, his reason being there, I have no idea. I can only begin to theorize on why he was there. I assume he was wondering what's going on. I mean, being the Secretary of Defense and the unique quality of these things, I'm sure they're thinking some kind of weapons they can use or whatever. They, as I didn't have a privy to any information. They would have to go through 3 gates once you get onto the thing. Once they got through those 3 gates, which I've never been a sentry to those gates. If you were on the facility, you were alright, as long as we were just standing there, I guess, for an invasion, possibly, or to make sure saboteurs. We had orders to shoot, to kill if anything looked suspicious. Anything.
Was Cheney escorted by anybody?
He was escorted by three. He was in 3 individuals, which I don't know who they were with Cheney. There was 2 people from the facility that were there, that walked with him through the complex. He went to level 2, level 1. He did not go to level 3 and 4.
Interesting details that he's adding in here, like where he walked, the way he walked, the levels he went to, and the levels he didn't go to.
Levels 1 or 2.
Because I was in level 2 at the time during his visit. I was by elevator door number 3, and I watched him go in, and he went into the back building, and we were called up to go guard him to the front of the hangar area as we went up there. I was relieved for elevator door number 3, and I went over there.
So he
He's giving like elevator door numbers and stuff.
He visited levels 1 and 2, so he was able to see the spacecraft.
Exactly. Yes.
And the bodies in the cylinders.
Absolutely, without discussion, he's seen the spacecraft. Without discussion, he's seen the bodies too. The 7 little gray people. Now, I mean.
So he's saying Dick Cheney has seen the bodies of these little grey people that were apparently recovered from crashes, and they're in these vats, what you see in the thumbnail, being preserved. Their bodies are just there being held and preserved, I guess, to be... Well, I mean, earlier in this video, he said the people who work in this facility in S4, they call it the museum. I guess it's just where they house this stuff that they recover that maybe like they don't really know what to do with it, or it's like, you know, you're not going to put it in the bin, are you? Like, if you think about it, if you actually recovered an alien body from a crash, yes, after a while you're probably going to be like, okay, we don't know what to do with this. You're still not going to put it in the bin. Like, you're going to just have to put it somewhere, like a museum.
Like I said before, I'm on the run and I know my time's limited. So
it sounds like you and your colleagues have thought this out a little bit. What is your best goal for getting this out in the open? If you guys want to put it together?
No, we don't. I mean, it's not. We don't want no money. We don't want no publicity because these guys have families. I don't.
Yeah, this is important to listen to. He's saying we're not trying to get publicity. We don't want money. And that the other people coming out with him have families, and that's why they're not there, but he doesn't. And this is what Wendell Stevens was saying, that the people who get pulled into these programs often don't have families because it's far easier to work with them.
What happens to me is irrelevant. I've always been an expendable being. I've always done them. So it's. But these guys have. They want to remain anonymous until the time comes. They don't want no stardom. They don't want no. We don't want no movies. We don't want books. We just want the American public to know that what is really happening behind those doors. I mean, the government is massively deceiving people.
So the government is massively deceiving people behind closed doors. This is in like early 90s, by the way.
Many lives are being destroyed because of their debunking processes.
Because of the debunking processes. Bill Schneider, that's an example.
Safe to say that there's probably many people in prison on, that have tried to do this before, so we want to take it safe and slow.
Project Pounce. This is where it gets really interesting.
UFOs and has custody of the ones that have been picked up. They're the ones that run S4 and Area 51.
I thought that was something like Snowbird.
Snowbird is an Army project to recover crashed vehicles. Project Pounce takes all the other recovered materials from everybody else and takes it to Area 51. Colonel Steve Wilson, who was...
So this Colonel Steve Wilson guy, this is kind of what this segment is about. Cannot find a thing about him. Allegedly ran this Project Pounce. I mean, I won't ruin it for you. Wendell's going to tell you about it. But I can't find anything about this guy. And funnily enough, there is like another Air Force general or someone like very high up called Stephen Wilson, but spelt like PH. Which when you search Colonel Steve Wilson, that's all you find, which is, you know, convenient.
The head of Project Pounce in Area 51 before he retired. And he headed the recovery project, and the same people who recovered him have custody of him out there in Area 51. It's in S4. And a time came when he knew too much. They also have live aliens, alien extraterrestrials living there. And a time came when apparently he knew too much, and he was given one of these fast-moving cancers. And when he was near death, he retired, medical retirement, and he came to the realization himself that it had been introduced because...
He kind of looks like Chris Bledsoe, in like a weird way.
Because of some recent information that had just come into his possession that was super sensitive. From Korea, he was a lieutenant colonel, and he was assigned to Vandenberg Air Force Base, where he again fits his classification. He had no ties. He was not married. He didn't have any children. He didn't have any family. And he was quickly recruited into the program and taken inside and transferred from Vandenberg to S4 where he got further indoctrination. Steve Wilson was born in 1930. In 1930, just 7 years after my birth. And like me, he first became an aviation mechanic and then a flight engineer on a bomber. He applied for cadet training. He worked for General Crabb, was accepted for cadet training, and went to flight school at Kelly Field, pretty much as I did. He became a pilot from being a flight line mechanic, career flight line mechanic, became a career pilot. He flew F-86 Sabre jets in the combat in the war in Korea, where he took a bullet in the abdomen that left him bleeding heavily in the cockpit. He was trying to hold his guts in as he radioed a position report and his remaining fuel supply, and then he seemed to pass out, lose consciousness. What followed after that seemed to demonstrate some extraordinary assistance taking place. The air traffic control officer from the 67th Fighter Squadron control tower saw an airplane, an unannounced airplane, entering the traffic to land. The airplane was strangely surrounded by a green glow as it made a correct approach for landing. The airplane is still flying, approaches in the landing pattern with the engine running, and the engine quits on the rollout on the runway out of a good landing. The airplane flared out, made a perfect landing, rolled out, and as the mechanics ran to the airplane to get him out, the engine was stopped, and they found him unconscious in the cockpit. Now this is days later, after he took the bullet. He doesn't have gasoline but for a couple of hours, and he's out of fuel. They took him to the hospital. He recovered quickly, and on subsequent tests they discovered that his IQ had gone to a high figure from a normal figure. He had suddenly acquired a very high IQ that they couldn't account for. His
Over an IQ. Okay, so this guy had some like incident where he nearly died. He got shot, and then some kind of like anomalous experience, and now his IQ is over 200. That's like 200 is already crazy. Over 200 is like what? Yes, Tom. Fast-moving cancer. So basically, they think this guy believes, like we heard in the previous episodes, that he was targeted with some kind of weapon that basically gives you cancer and kills you very quickly, because he knew the kind of things that go on in these programs, and he felt like he learned too much, and these weapons were used on him. That's what he believed. MIB says, sorry, Mr. Josh, I'm late for class. You're excused. Please take a seat. Don't be late again. Yoza, who couldn't I find? Steve Wilson is his name. This is who we're talking about here. Colonel Steve Wilson. You'll hear. I'll let it keep playing. You'll hear more about it.
IQ had gone from 162 to 232, a very high figure for anybody. And as after this, he noticed an impressive increase in his extrasensory perception, ESP ability. Upon recovery from this, he was assigned to the 1st Air Force Special Services Command at Vandenberg Air Force Base. And I found that very interesting, because shortly after that, and directly from there, he was transferred to Papoose Lake S4 facility, and there he was briefed by a colonel that he was replacing on the security measures taken in transferring special craft from one part to another in S4. He was briefed by a new colonel that he was replacing about the movement of ships in S4. In time, he became the project officer in charge of Project Pounce, the project that's responsible for the recovery and storage of crashed UFOs. That is the Project Pounce, created near the end of December 1980, was in charge of the recovery of captured alien aircraft. And this recovery project was made up of elite Black Berets, Special Forces troops, and special components collected and used together in the recovery of crashed discs, daily discs.
So this thing, Project Pounce, then is obviously likely after Blue Book, right? They said like 80s. This is sort of around the time of the Strategic Defense Initiative, the Star Wars program, which is when they started militarizing the use of lasers and railguns and all that kind of crazy stuff. And he said Project Pounce is made up of Black Berets. I mean, obviously there's a lot of Black Berets doing a lot of different things, but that is something that is part of Phil Schneider's testimony as well. That part of the crew that was just digging tunnels. So just the building phase, he was surrounded by green and black berets, just building the facilities.
Project Pounce dispatched recovery troops to the site, where they closed off the area, effected the recovery, and then sanitized the area afterwards and restored the ground to its appearance before the event happened. And he first reported this in Italy in an interview he gave there just before he went into the hospital to die of cancer. Colonel Steve Wilson was now enjoying cosmic top secret clearance. Cosmic clearance is level Q27.
So this Steve Wilson guy had a cosmic top secret clearance, which is the same as Bob Dean, but he said level 27. And we'll find out more, but there are apparently 33 levels to a cosmic top secret clearance, which I didn't know before watching this. I wonder if there's any information out there or if anyone knows what level Bob Dean held in the cosmic top secret clearance.
And in this capacity, he was in charge of the storing the captured alien vehicles and the bodies of the occupants in Area S4. When he retired after some 40 years of active service, he was much decorated. I was sorry I didn't get to know him better, but he came after.
That's right, Mr. T. You're ahead of the game. We're gonna get there.
He came back from Italy. He settled in Phoenix, and he was being treated there for his fast-moving cancer. And he had opened a website so he could publicize what was going on in S4. He had the same feelings as Contra Orion. He felt if he had had a fatal cancer, and which he now knew he knew it had to be introduced by his own superiors, and he knew that it had to be because he now knew too much himself and became a liability to them. And so he...
Someone said that's as many levels as Scientology. That has to be capped. If that is real, if we can get confirmation there's actually 33 levels to Scientology, I will eat my beanie on live stream.
Also feeling that this security was misplaced, was he intended to bring down the whole house of cards himself, but with his website he was going to reveal all that he knew about S4, but his cancer worsened rapidly and he had to go into the hospital. He was under special control in a close observation ward in the hospital, where he and Bill Hamilton, decided to stage a conference in Phoenix, a UFO conference, where he would make his presentation and officially announce the opening of the website, and that he was going to publish everything he knew about S4 on the website. And the conference was scheduled to be developed quickly. It was going to come off in less than 2 weeks from the time they got the idea. They rushed out literature and information to everybody they could. And I was going to speak at the conference, and when I got there, I learned that Colonel Steve Wilson had died of his cancer the day before the conference opened in Phoenix. The conference went on anyway, but we did not get the publicity release we expected. Steve.
8 OT levels in Scientology. Yeah, so that's the operating Thetan. But like to get to just becoming a like base level operating Thetan, you have to climb a lot of levels, and it may be like 20 something. I think like there could be 33. I hope there isn't, because I really like this North Face beanie, but I feel like there's probably around 33 levels in Scientology, maybe more. I think there might be more, to be honest. But yes, there are 33 in the Freemasons, and there are 33 levels of cosmic top secret Q clearance.
Wilson to engender when he made his pronouncements from the platform just before he was going to die.
A tragedy that he never got to speak.
It was controlled that way, I'm quite sure. This painting that was published in the Italian magazine Notizie UFO, put out by Roberto Pinotti and Maurizio Baetta.
All right, yeah, check this out. Pay attention here.
When Colonel Steve Wilson was visiting Italy and dying of cancer, Wilson told him that he was formerly head of Project Pounce at Area S4 and lived in the S4 facility for a great deal of time. He said that he was dying of cancer and suspected that cancer had been administered by his own security forces because he was about to retire, and he had remained on active duty for over 30 years before he decided to retire. But they weren't going to let him do it because he now knew too much. That's what his feelings were. They gave him a fast-moving cancer to keep him from going very far, but he was visiting Italy in his final days, and he heard about a UFO conference going on there, and he went to see what was being put out about the unidentified flying objects. And he met
Rob says he put a link in the chat about Steve Wilson but didn't show it. If anyone's got any information on this Steve Wilson guy, please drop it in our Discord. The link is below, so go and check that out. And it's interesting how he's saying like this Steve Wilson guy believes that he was targeted with a weapon that gave him a fast-acting brain cancer, killed him, because he wanted to retire. He wanted to get out, but he felt like they thought he knew too much. Now, if these weapons exist and it is possible to give someone a fast-acting cancer, and guys, let's be honest, this isn't the first time we've heard things like this. We've heard that there are weapons that can do this to people. It makes a lot of sense why people are scared to blow the whistle, to like come out of these programs, because like, how are these things targeted? Okay, let's assume they have these weapons. They also have these craft. Does that mean they could, like, in the speed of light, just appear over your house, beam your whole home with some cancer weapon, and then zip away? And like, no one would ever even know they were there. You wouldn't know they were there. As far as you know, you just suddenly have cancer. I mean, like, if we're to follow this line of thought and believe what we're being told, all of these things are possible, which is wild, and it makes sense why some of these like top-end military guys are genuinely, like, so we hear, afraid of talking, because they feel like they could just be got anywhere at any moment. Imagine what they know at the highest level. Yes, exactly. Toxic Fire. And we're going to get to them in a minute. And thank you for the $2, my man.
Bayetta and Pinotti, and after he told them who he was, they persuaded him to give them a deathbed statement to be released after he was gone. Bayetta and Pinotti had a magazine staff painter with them, one Agnes Showjock, and they had a copy editor doing the review work, taking down the questions and answers and all kinds of additional notes. Agnes Showjock painted this painting by verbal description from Colonel Steve Wilson as she painted, with him correcting as she painted. You notice the one in Bay 1 is identical to the one that Contra Ryan sketched.
Okay, so just in case anyone isn't following there, if you watch the first episode where we really focused on Conor O'Ryan, he drew that picture there on the right-hand side. That was his depiction of the craft that he saw, okay? And he gave that to Wendell Stevens in about 1991 or early 90s. Because remember, Wendell Stevens sat on this story for 10 years before he told anybody, because he thought he was maybe getting psyoped. Like, he thought this was a disinformation campaign, and he was going to be the conduit to bring it out to the public, and he didn't want to do that, so he sat on it, right? The picture you see on the left is a painting that was commissioned by this Colonel Steve Wilson before he died. So at this point in time, this drawing by Conor O'Ryan wasn't public, okay? This was just a picture that Wendell Stevens was sitting on. And then before Colonel Steve Wilson died, this painting came out. And look how similar those two craft look. Like, crazy similar.
Notice Bay 2, 3, and 4 have identical craft with the same ship, as Conor also substantially sketched.
Yeah, and this is the other ship that Conor sketched again, and the other ships you can see in the painting. Like, they are extremely similar, and they were allegedly, according to Wendell Stevens, independently drawn.
In his drawing. I don't know whether Colonel Steve Wilson had access to my private files or not, because I didn't publish anything that I had up to 2001. But this painting seems to confirm what Conor Ryan had told us in great detail. This is what the corridor looked like also, according to Conor Ryan. Now, Conor was sketched and had also sketched a tank holding the alien bodies, and Agnes Showjock had made the same painting under the detailed description of Colonel Steve Wilson.
So this is, again, the same stuff, guys. What you see on the right is the painting by this Colonel Wilson, or a painting that he commissioned and helped guide. And these are Conor Ryan sketches. Again, they were done independently, like 10 years apart. Mish, hello, welcome. Magic, my man, welcome. Good to see you.
That shows 6 cylinders, which show bodies and tanks being held by a band around the waist. And notice the regulator on the side of the tank, just exactly as it was sketched by Conor Ryan 4 years earlier. So I thought that this might be enough confirmation, since we had no other information which we could rely on to confirm the Contra Ryan story, and I decided to release it at that point. He came down with a brain cancer, which is the kind that's introduced by intelligence to terminate people.
Similar to maybe what Jim Lorenzen had?
He suspected that he knew too much and that his own superiors were getting rid of him.
Sorry, camera's going to overheat. I'm just trying to get the heater turned off in the house, that's all.
He died in a hospital in Phoenix.
Steve Wilson.
Mm-hmm.
And wasn't that the same thing that Jim Lorenzen had? He died of a brain cancer.
So did Dr. Hynek.
And Dr. Hynek as well.
Oh, Heidi, you missed some bombs. You missed some bombs. You're going to have to watch it back later.
When they get too much, and if it looks like they may be approaching a point where they might spill the beans, they terminate them. And that's the cheapest way, is to give them a fast-moving brain cancer. Colonel Steve Wilson, in his terminal cancer stages, he wanted to go back to Italy, and he went to a UFO conference to see what the world knew about UFOs. And he met Baetta and Roberto Pinotti, who was the vice president of Fiat Motors at the time. And when they found out who he was, they tried to get a good statement from him. And he agreed to give them a statement there in Italy as long as they didn't publish it until after he was gone. And he didn't want it translated and published in this country. So they brought in their staff painter, staff illustrator, to illustrate what he could describe at S4. And he described level 2. He described it to him and the craft that were sitting in the bays there. And this Shojak, I think her name was, the artist, painted a good picture with him correcting it as she painted. And then she painted the bodies in the cylinders in the liquid bath in the cylinders, held erect by clamps. And they didn't know anything about the Contra Ryan case. They were getting this from Steve Wilson. So when that painting appeared, then when I tried to find out more about Steve Wilson, found out that he actually helped promote a UFO Congress with Bill Hamilton in the Phoenix area, which I attended. I made a presentation at it, but Wilson didn't make the Congress because he died the day before the Congress started in a Phoenix hospital. So I never got to meet Steve Wilson. I didn't know who he was until after that. And you know, the Dr. UFO Research, Richard Boylan, mm-hmm. did the last interview with Steve Wilson in Phoenix just a week before he died. Mm.
So this Dr. Richard Boylan and apparently a few other people have interviewed this Colonel Steve Wilson guy before he died. That's what I'm looking for. When you search his name, there's another Air Force general called Stephen Wilson with a PH, which is annoying. But there's got to be some stuff out there from this guy that I would love to dig into. He sounds like a fascinating character. And the camera's back. For how long? I'm not sure.
In the last days before Colonel Steve Wilson's passing, he granted what became his final interview to Dr. Richard Boylan. What follows are some of the most important elements of those conversations. Wilson claimed that Project Pounce does not exist as a unit in order to maintain the utmost security, but instead only came together for UFO crash retrieval incidents. Members of the Project Pounce team were summoned only when necessary. They did not know each other and joined the team because of their very specific areas of expertise.
Just to interject quickly, I'm very sure when Jason Sands has told his wild stories that he tells, that's one detail I remember, that, like, you know, he was part of this secret team, but that's not his day job. Like, all of these guys had day jobs that they would be doing for the military, but when they were called, they would all be pulled out of their regular jobs and would go somewhere, and they would be working with all other, you know, soldiers or whatever you want to call them, that they didn't know. All random. And it makes sense, right? From the kings of compartmentalization themselves, that's exactly how you would think something like this would operate.
Wilson claimed that there were 33 levels of cosmic top secret, an interesting number in that it mirrors Freemasonry.
Okay, a few people in the chat are ahead of the game. I like it.
At the top of the totem pole, Q33, is the Military Agency for Joint Intelligence, or MAGI. Wilson said, "No person knows it all except for level 33, people like Henry Kissinger and Edward Teller." Magi's executive board includes its chairman Henry Kissinger, Q33, and atomic scientist Edward Teller, also Q33, now deceased. Interestingly, during the World War II era, history records that both of these men appear to have been simultaneously in the United States as well as in Germany at the University of Heidelberg.
Okay, let's just make a little footnote there. Kissinger and Teller are both recorded as being in Germany and the USA at the same time during the war. During the war. While the enemy lives there, Kissinger and Teller are documented as being there as well as the United States at the same time. Let's just footnote that for now.
Wilson explained that level Q32 is Majestic 12, or MJ12, a leadership board for field operations related to the UFO cover-up. Of Kissinger and Teller, Wilson said, both are MJ12 members, which number 36 in all as of 1994. It might interest you to know that they go back as far as Project Paperclip, which was a secret program that relocated Nazi scientists into America to push forward the military, aerospace, and rocket programs being developed in the U.S.
Right. Get your tinfoil hats out. Give me 1 second. Right. I told you guys I had a bit of a classic Polarity weave that is flirting with the realm of schizophrenia, just how we like it. But, okay. Look, I just want to give a very clear disclaimer on this, okay? I'm not trying to tell you guys anything with what I'm about to show you. I'm not trying to make any claims. All I'm going to show you is some interesting patterns and themes that I personally noticed. And some of these dots may connect, and I'm interested to hear what you guys think. Some of them might not connect at all, and I'm just talking absolute shit. Okay, remember, I'm a nobody. I just like looking into UFOs, and I like theories. That's fun for me. I'm not trying to tell you any of this is true. Okay, these are just theories, and it's just for fun. So, let's talk about the Aryan race, who the Nazis were obsessed with, right? The Aryan race was a Indo-European race that kind of originated somewhere kind of like above or like eastern Iraq area. And they migrated, and they split when they migrated. Half of them went to what is now known as Iran, and the other half, you can see the red line, went to kind of like northwestern India, okay? I did make notes for these slides, but I might look at my notes if I need to, but I will just we'll try and work with it. So this Aryan race was obviously, you know, the classic tall, blonde hair, blue eyes. And when they split, the Iranian side of the Aryan race was the propagators of what is known as Zoroastrianism, which is basically like an ancient Persian religion. That's, if you guys remember the interview I did with Mac Mazda, he very much sort of aligns himself with Zoroastrianism still. Okay, he has a necklace with that symbol on it, so it's still a thing. And then you've obviously got the Indian Aryans, which are responsible for the Vedic religion, the Vedic texts, and you can see the symbol on the side of the horses there. And here we are. So the Zoroastrianism symbol is called the Farvahar, and the Vedic Aryan symbol, I don't believe it's just a swastika, I guess, right? But it's a little bit different to the one that we know today. But we can obviously see the similarities. Now, in the Vedic texts, I know a lot of you guys probably know this stuff, but in the Vedic texts, they talk about Vimanas, right? Which are chariots for the gods, these divine flying machines in the sky, okay? This is in the Vedic texts that the Aryans are responsible for. And you guys would have all seen this guy on the left, right? You know, the bird with the thing, and he's with the wristwatch. You know, we've all seen this picture. This originates. This is more like Assyrian. So this is like more in Iraq, which is close by. It's in the same area, a bit more north, more like Mesopotamia, right? But that thing that he's placing the acorn-shaped thing towards is this tree of life, which you can see here on the right-hand side. Above the tree of life, though, you see the Faravahar, which is the symbol from the Zoroastrianism, right? So we can kind of like, I think we can maybe conclude from that this Zoroastrianism symbol, the Faravahar, is quite important, right? It's because it's sitting above the tree of life. So just when we think about like symbolism and, you know, meanings of the way things are placed and depicted, we can kind of like deduce that this symbol is somewhat significant to people in this area, okay? So let's skip forward quite a little bit here, and let's talk about Nazi Germany, right? Obsessed with this Aryan race, these blonde-haired, blue-eyes people. Same Nazi Germany, allegedly, the conspiracy theorists, who are never right, will tell you that the Nazis had these craft. Okay, they had these craft, die Glocke, the Hanabu, right? Well, let's take a look at their symbol here. I mean, you can already see you've got this spread-winged eagle holding the swastika, and you can see exactly. Now, I don't know about the Assyrian symbol that I put at the top there with the bird head. Like, you know, maybe we could leave that out and we could just leave it at the Faravahar and the swastika. But I think you guys kind of see what I'm getting at with that, right? We can go to the next slide. So let's go to the breakaway civilization stream that I did, where we heard from the Navy SEAL whistleblower who allegedly was in Antarctica, which we know is massively connected to the Nazis for a multitude of conspiracy theories. I mean, it's not a conspiracy theory that they were there in the 30s. They claim New Schwabenland. They were very interested in Antarctica. That's a fact. And then there's the conspiracy about Operation High Jump, and, you know, we went there for science, but then we returned in like a couple of weeks and we lost a whole bunch of stuff. Like, it's a conspiracy theory, okay? But this is what they allegedly saw in this base. And that symbol is what is on the floor in Heinrich Himmler's at Weilsburg, which is a castle where the SS would hold these black magic occult rituals, okay? That's on the floor. That's allegedly in Antarctica, right? So let's take the Vedic Aryan symbol. Let's remove the dots. Let's rotate it 45 degrees. And we have the swastika, okay? That's pretty obvious. But when we elongate the swastika and we stretch it out a little bit, and we add another one, and we add another one, you get the black sun symbol, okay? So we can see that these symbols in this alien base in Antarctica, the Heinrich Himmler's horror castle, where they're doing black magic, contacting non-human entities or whatever they're doing, these weird sacrificial things, all of this symbolism aligns with each other, right? And remember, this swastika comes from this Vedic text where they're talking about Vimanas, divine flying machines, and then there are these conspiracy theories about die Glocke and the Hanabu, and I mean, you can see that die Glocke looks very similar to that depiction of a Vimana already. I mean, that could just be a coincidence, of course. It's, you know, who knows? Then we've got Operation Paperclip, right? We all know when the Germans were, at the time, very covertly and secretly transplanted directly into the United States, right? That's a picture there. The man in the suit, who you can see, is Werner von Braun, who I'm sure we all know. And he's standing there with the SS, okay? If you don't know who Werner von Braun is, he ended up being a chief architect at NASA. He engineered this Saturn V rocket and put America on the moon. So we've now got Nazi Germany combining with the United States. Okay, they've basically taken the best of the best and they've gone like this. You know, at what levels, it's not 100% clear, but we know that Operation Paperclip happened. What the symbol you see on the right-hand side is the Great Seal of the United States. Very similar. Okay, it's very similar. I'm not trying to like say what that means. All I want to highlight is that they are very interestingly similar symbols. So let's have a look at what we've got here. We've got in America, Werner von Braun, who is also a Nazi working with the SS, chief rocket architect. We've got two 33rd degree Freemasons, Edward Teller and Henry Kissinger, who, remember, were apparently documented being in Germany during World War II and in the United States at the same time. You know, that's weird. Don't know like why they would be there or how that's even possible, but whatever. And then you've got the Germans with their advanced technology, strange links to this Aryan race that is blonde-haired and blue eyes and has advanced technology, okay? Secret technology. So let's just kind of like overview what we've got so far. Okay, let's go back to the start. You've got the Aryans. They migrated. They created this Zoroastrianism. They created these Vedic texts. And these symbols look a lot like what we see on the swastika, or sorry, on the Nazi German, the German eagle with the swastika. It's also kind of similar to the Great Seal of the United States of America. You've got Hermann Oberth there, who is the father of the German rocket program, saying we cannot take credit for our record advancement in certain scientific fields alone. We have been helped, and we have been helped by the people of other worlds. That is a real quote. You can look it up. It's not made up. And then you've got Edward Teller, father of the hydrogen bomb, Henry Kissinger, you know, fathers of secrets and 33rd degree Freemasons. And the symbol of the Freemasons is a two-headed eagle with its arms, with its wings spread. Okay, now, I'm not trying to say that, like, Freemasons are just America and Nazis combined together. But the symbolism is very interesting, okay? Like, the history and the way it all kind of connects and looks very similar. So now we've got this, like, weird conglomeration of Vedic texts, Zoroastrianism, Aryan races, advanced technology, father of the hydrogen bomb, father of the Saturn rocket, like all of these high-level guys from secret societies and involved in secret technology. And then in 2014, Forbes magazine posted an article that says Iran says tall white space aliens control America. And the term tall white gets often like, you know, we hear Nordic, which is the blonde hair, blue eyes, tall, beautiful, and tall white. Now, I think people who have sort of been in this space a while would kind of say that they are separate, and I'd probably agree with that. But I think in like the general stream of things, they often get confused and like interchange. The terms are interchangeable, right? So that came out in 2014. 2020, the Jerusalem Post put out an article with Haim Eshed, who was the head of Israel's space program for 30 years, brigadier general in the Israel Defense Force, that said, former Israel space security chief says aliens exist, humanity is not ready. The Galactic Federation has supposedly been in contact with Israel and the US for years, but are keeping themselves a secret to prevent hysteria until humanity is ready. Now, it kind of feels like over the last nearly 10 years, since 2017, since all the CIA guys appeared on the scene, that there has been some kind of slow drip disclosure, okay? Some kind of program to get humanity ready. Well, let's say it was a 10-year plan, because that, I don't know, kind of makes sense. It kind of feels like at the pace that the things have been going, that within another 2 years, well, it would bring us to 2027, wouldn't it? That 10-year plan would bring us to 2027, the year that we all keep hearing about, that all the CIA guys keep talking about. And then we're just finding this, that we're hearing from Congressman Eric Burleson that Trump has been briefed on Nordic aliens. Nordic being blonde hair, blue eyes, tall, and that they look just like us and they blend in with us, but they have technology that is hundreds of years ahead. Does that mean that this Aryan race is real and that they do have technology that is far ahead than us, and they have been who the Nazis were working with originally. That's why they were obsessed with them, because they worked for them, and there is some kind of integration with who they are and their technology and controlling society, potentially Freemasonry, given that there are 33 levels of that and there are 33 levels of the Q clearance. I don't know. Am I cooking or am I cooked? Do I need to see a doctor? Or do you guys want another serve? Because there are seconds. No, I don't actually have any more to show you, but I'm sure we could go deeper on this. But what do you guys think? Like I said, I'm not trying to I'm really not trying to tell you anything here, because I don't know. You guys know I'll never tell you anything for sure, because I'm the most like reserving judgment person. But also, I think the cool part of having a YouTube channel is I get to talk to people, and I get to come up with, like, I think the most funnest part about all of this, and I'm sure you guys would agree, is that it's fun to think, it's fun to imagine, it's fun to theorize. But I think a lot of people who have platforms are kind of maybe like scared or nervous to do that, which I understand, because maybe some people don't want to be wrong. Maybe they're in positions where it's like damaging if they say something wrong. I'm not. I don't give a fuck. I'm in my bedroom. If I get something wrong, I'll say, whoops, I'm sorry, I got that wrong. And I'll get on with it. So there we go. Just for a bit of fun. What do you guys think? Maybe that'll stimulate your brain a little bit. Get in Discord. We'll keep this conversation going after the show. I'm glad some of you people liked it. In fact, actually, and just to kind of finish off, Magic, welcome back to the Weirdos Club for 5 months, my man. Thank you. Some love for my man Magic. Just to kind of cap off what we said before we get back into the show about this Aryan race that look just like us. Remember this?
Out of those 4 different groups, one group looked exactly like we do. So much so that they could sit beside you in a restaurant or in an airplane or in a theater, and you'd never know. And that particular point bothered the military guys a lot. Point being that some of these people from somewhere could be walking up and down the corridors of SHAPE headquarters, or they could be walking up and down the corridors of the Pentagon. One day at lunch, a lieutenant colonel made the remark, he says, Jesus, do you realize they could even be in the White House?
Maybe they are. Maybe that's who's pulling the strings. Maybe that's the top of the Freemasonry ladder. Told you guys I didn't have any more, but I did. I had a little bit of dessert there for you. I hope you liked it. Someone says, I'm Zezima. Can I have a free party hat, please? I'm glad you guys liked that. Let's get on with the rest of the show. Josh Stradamus making an appearance. Just before we do, $10 from JL Lammy. Josh, check out Robert Seffer's videos on the Aryans. I think they are refugees of an Atlantis battle, maybe. All ancient cultures talk about living amongst, then they had to depart. It's a fascinating rabbit hole, that stuff. I'm super, super interested to continue to go deep on that. I love it. All right, let's keep going. Thank you, guys. I'm glad you enjoyed that. You can take your tinfoil hat off now.
Level Q31, according to Wilson, are certain aerospace manufacturing executives like Ben Rich of Lockheed Martin Skunk Works in Palmdale, California, whose statements on exotic aerospace technology are discussed in the UFO Hypotheses film Michael Schratt, Volume 1. Among other Q31 aerospace manufacturers, according to Wilson, is Northrop and its facility in the mountains northwest of Lancaster, California, and Boeing's Phantom Works facility in Seattle, Washington. Leading the scientific apparatus at S4 for many years was Edward Teller, Q33. It was Teller who cleared naval intelligence physicist Bob Lazar to work at S4. Teller led teams of scientists who back-engineered the crashed alien UFO vehicles into functional U.S. anti-gravity aerospace craft that human military astronauts could operate, like Lockheed's X-22A disc. Wilson claimed that this program, headed by Teller, was not responsive to command authority of the United States President. Wilson also informed Boylan that space warfare operations against selected alien visitors were being executed by military astronauts trained at a secret Air Force academy. At Boylan's request, At Boylan's request, Colonel Wilson drew up a chart of the operating structure of Strategic Defense Initiative, a diagram he nicknamed Star Wars City, made up of government, military, and elite defense contractor corporations. Wilson said that it was common practice for military officers to rotate out of military leadership into executive positions at these defense contractor corporations, a good old boy network, if you will. Wilson also singled out Admiral Bobby Ray Inman, whom he claimed had control over Decision Science Applications Incorporated. Wilson said, Decision Science Applications Incorporated is a group made up of all the heads of the military hardware manufacturing in the black area. Another elite defense contractor Wilson highlighted is the Rockefeller Company, a huge beneficiary of the Strategic Defense Initiative, also known as the Ballistic Missile Defense Organization, also known as Star Wars. In this photo, Henry Kissinger is seen with fellow collaborators David and Jay Rockefeller. David Rockefeller has long been associated with high authority over the Council on Foreign Relations, the CFR, whose long-term globalist goals are widely known. For a more detailed report on Rockefeller influence on the U.S. government and military, see the UFO Hypotheses film, Aztec Volume 1. Kissinger, said Colonel Wilson, is a key figure in MK-Ultra, which according to Dr.
This is where it starts to get pretty dark. I mean, we're just talking about Nazis and Ions ruling society, but yeah, it might get a bit darker here. Just a warning.
Dr. Boylan is a secret, ongoing mind control research and development project directed by the CIA and employs psychotronic devices, selective use of drugs, hypnosis, and signals and frequencies designed to influence people's thoughts, emotions, and behavior.
You know, like that stuff, the more you look into it, the idea of like frequencies and things actually manipulating your consciousness is actually seems like it's actually real. And that is like, when you scale that back, that is like a real OG tinfoil hat. Like, well, that is what tinfoil hats are for. That is literally what tinfoil hats are for, right? To block the frequencies messing with your mind. And it turns out that is real. Yep. Mm-hmm. I might have to get like a liner. Get a little like little liner in here. Little tinfoil liner under the beanie.
Boylan sees a strong link between mind control and the UFO cover-up. Mind control research may have even earlier roots than is made obvious from the CIA and its Robertson panel of 1953, perhaps originating within Nazi Germany with Dr. Joseph Mengelé's vicious experiments and Joseph Goebbels' Nazi propaganda machine. Additional information on mind control is available in the UFO Hypotheses film Peggy Keane Volume 2, NASA Upside Down. During author William Steinman's investigation for UFO crash at Aztec, Steinman discovered that Captain Henry Kissinger was a leading figure associated with the first Interplanetary Phenomena Unit, IPU.
Kissinger was associated with the IPU, the Interplanetary something unit. I've never heard of the IPU. Has anyone else ever heard of that term before? By the way, $5 from Nicole Coley Ray. Thank you so much. And she says, thank you for sharing Jostradamus. I enjoyed that. My pleasure. I'm glad you guys enjoyed it. I was actually contemplating, I made it. And then I was contemplating like, nah, I don't know if I don't know if I should do that. Like, that's kind of wild. But you freaks love it. You love it, don't you? I'm glad I showed it. It was fun.
Out of Camp Hale, Colorado, just after World War II. Shortly after publishing his investigation, California police warned Steinman and his family that they had apprehended a man who appeared to have marked Steinman for assassination. Steinman quickly dropped his UFO research investigations due entirely to these threats. Wilson reported to Boylan that Magi employs Wackenhut as a private contract agency for assassinations and security under the moniker 1010 Special Security Squadron, and that the next level of clearance, Q30, is given to Wackenhut's 4 highest officers. According to Wilson, this 1010 Special Security Squadron reports directly to the National Reconnaissance Organization, but is funded by the tax dollars of U.S. citizens.
Ah, yes. The classic. Funded by your tax dollars, but zero input or even transparency on what they're doing with it. And tax rates are going up, by the way, so cough up.
Recall that chairman of MAGI, according to Wilson, is Henry Kissinger. Wilson admitted to Boylan that even as director of Project Pounce, his own clearance was much lower. I was only level 27. That's as far as I could go. Boylan remarks that Wilson was sickened by Kissinger and Teller's lust for power. Both acted as if they were above all laws in Wilson's view.
Well, they were. They were, right? We're talking about operating beyond oversight. They were above the law. I mean, they got to decide. They made that decision, but yeah, they were.
Appalled by their unethical and unconstitutional behavior, Colonel Wilson tried to go public with his information on a short-lived website and gave interviews to Roberto Pinotti, Maurizio Baiata, Bill Hamilton, and Richard Boylan in his last days to thwart Magi's evil plans once Wilson realized that he had been poisoned with cancer by his...
So there you go. These are the 4 people that this Wilson guy, Steve Wilson, gave interviews to before this fast-acting brain cancer killed him. They must, like, even just written transcripts must exist somewhere of at least one of them on the internet. This is what we need to find, team.
Superiors. Wilson understood that Magi's plans include both controlling the most advanced, exotic aerospace anti-gravity fighter vehicles from back-engineered UFOs, as well as manipulation of the masses through propaganda and mind control in order to force with invincibility their designs for world power upon an unsuspecting global population.
Propaganda? No. Western culture wouldn't do that to us. Maybe Green Day were right. Green Day were right.
Before his death, Colonel Steve Wilson, like Orion, Lazar, Uhaus, Schneider, Bill Cooper, and Philip Corso, helped immensely with shedding light on the Machiavellian world of black budget defense and the UFO cover-up within the United States.
But he came out and told about the secrets of S4, and he quickly died after that. He died right up here in Phoenix. But he had a real colorful history. When he discovered that his own people had poisoned him, had given him the disease that he was dying from, he opened a website, tried to put as much information on there because I don't remember what it is now, but he died shortly after that in hospital Phoenix. But he knew that we have craft. He knew where the bases were. He knew that we had a base at Beale and 100 Beale and 100 Vandenberg. There were 4 in the United States, and the zone of injury, and 4 deployed overseas. And the ones overseas, the host countries don't even know they're there. They're dug into excavated facilities. All of them are underground. All of the craft always leave from underground and return to underground when they come back with their missions. The Russians are shooting some down too. I don't know how they distinguish which ones to fire on and which ones not to. But he said that the Russians had brought down 3 or 4 and we brought down like 8 or 10. He had brought them down or driven them off. And you know, that's a dangerous operation. Those people are coming from power sources a lot more sophisticated than ours, and somebody may want to retaliate someday, and we're stuck here. We can't go any place.
There we go, team. That is part 5, I believe, of the S4 files. If that happened to be your first episode that you've caught, you can go and catch up. There's a playlist on the channel called The Secrets of S4, and we're going to be documenting them all there, be up as a series on the channel. Good. We've got 1 episode to go. I'm not sure when it's going to be. It might be tomorrow or it might be the day after. Keep an eye on the channel. I know some people say they missed the live notification. Make sure you've got the bell turned on below. Make sure you can join our Discord. I always ping people when I'm going live. Follow me on Instagram, just here. I always upload a story when I go live, or follow me on X because I post on there when I go live. So really, you've got no excuse to miss a live, okay? So I don't want to hear any excuses next time. Guys, thank you all for being here. Whoa, that wasn't... We're not ready for that yet. My bad. Thank you all for being here, guys. I appreciate it. I hope you learned something. I hope you found my little mildly psychotic weave interesting and maybe taught you something, join the Discord if you haven't. The link is below. But until next time, guys, be good, be kind, look after each other, get outside every day, move your body, get out the rabbit holes. Otherwise, you get lost, you'll lose it, you'll never come back. All right, take care, guys. We'll see you on the next one.
Eventually, people are going to say, what the hell is going on?
No matter how far you go into the dark, when you flip, you go exactly the same place to the light in our galaxy. Everything. Because everything is in balance. Everything is a polarity.
I think it's just going to get weirder and weirder and weirder, and finally it's going to be so weird that people are going to have to talk about how weird it is.